Hello, we are here today with Professor Takao Kamibeppu of the Faculty of Liberal Arts for Global Studies and Leadership at the Tokyo Jogakkan College. Professor Takao, we have invited you because of your expertise in the field of internationalization of higher education.
Thank you.
And your knowledge about international policy making. We have around 5 questions for you to lead you around. My first question for you would be, what would you consider are the key trends in higher education for the world today?
Thank you. So that's a very good question. Then I don't say probably a regular term like internationalization, global mobility, but I want to say a little bit a cynical way. I think there's a trend to create trends in the world, which means that there's an internationalization, like a student mobility, education hub, those kind of things. So sounds like there's some regime of the that the students. It's good that the students is mobile. It's good that the English or international activities are good. There's some a little bit regime is there. So, but also there's some trend is more like a convergence. Many systems should be a little similar, or keeping some diversity, of course, but try to be similar each other so that people benefit, especially students who can move around different systems easily. But I feel sometimes this kind of regime sometimes too strong, sometimes, because I don't know who creates trends, because I feel sometimes somebody said in a paper, trends are created to benefit the stakeholders who creates trends. So maybe trends go back to the stakeholder. So I just wondering, who will be left behind from this kind of trend making, maybe agenda setting. So I think not only like convergence, we should think about divergence, still like sensitivity to the diversity is also important to think about.
Thank you so much. And now if you compare what you explained now to the context of your own country, are there similarities or differences?
Yes. In case of those more global mobility, student mobility, internationalization, English medium instructions, still it's very big topic in Japan, in government universities. But I want to say it's very still target university is very at the top, elite university, because I'm from not elite university. So when I look at the government documents, like leaders discussing globalization, my students have not so much in common. So, but the top elite university students are only like 5 or 10% of the total, close to 800 universities in Japan. So this kind of a very elitist discussion about the international mobility is only benefits small portion in Japan, for example. Also, sometimes this kind of mobility, if you have a good international experience, in rational sense, I think those should be rewarded by a good job, those kind of things. But in Japan, sometimes opposite. If you have too much international experience, or if you have a double degree, for example, or master's or PhD from inside, outside Japan, very difficult to get a job in a company, because company want to train you, mend you to fit the company's culture. So it's better not to have an extra experience, such as international mobility. So that's a little bit peculiar to Japan against the international trend.
So that's really interesting. So there are the differences. We are both working in the European Commission funded project Universities in the Knowledge Economy. And we're interested in ways how universities are being enrolled and to produce knowledge and how workers in this economy are produced. Would there be something yet that you see happening in the context which you're working in, what these changes mean for the idea of university as we know it? So
in the context of Japan, which I know well, discussion has been maybe recent 5 or 10 years that students, universities are not preparing students enough for the industry or for the employers. But this kind of voice from industry has been heard so many years. But because, as I mentioned, companies want to change the new employee anyway to fit their corporate culture. company didn't expect much to the universities. So university was sometime 20 years ago, it's called leisure land. So the student can do a part-time job, hobby, club activities, like maybe, having fun for 4 years. So which kind of a socialization? You spend 4 years to be a good person outside the campus by doing that kind of activity. So, but recently it's more voices. University has to educate, give a good knowledge, skilled attitude. So that's very big voice. Voice is getting bigger. But because that's traditional relationship, university and industry, universities try to give more strict grading, for example. But students know that those GPA or grades are not so much important to get a job in the company. So industry says to the university, please give a better quality education, but because the students know the reality, under the formal talking, we faculty at the universities cannot do so much strict way. So a little bit dilemma about the knowledge production at the university.
And I will continue to the next question, because your previous answer really gave me some food for thought. I think Asia is very diverse.
Yes.
Therefore, I would like to ask you what you think is the most positive outcome of the recent change to higher education in the developed countries and developing countries in Asia. Can you give some example?
Okay. Yeah, example is that because Asia is a fast-growing economy, like leading the world economy, especially. I think many middle-income groups are emerging in Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, of course Malaysia, Singapore, but many, even Myanmar is opening the country. Many people who didn't have experience, who didn't have a chance before, have getting opportunity to to choose there more options, including study abroad or short-term degree seeking. I think a recent trend is more like students can have more options because of recent economic development, which is very good for the low-income or middle-income ASEAN countries, for example. But in case of, I should say positive, so in case of Japan too, because as I mentioned, government in Japan is pushing internationalization, so which means students who have been hesitant to go abroad because some, I don't know, maybe Japan is too comfortable for them, but government is giving them that the world is changing. ASEAN countries, students more going out, so why not the Japanese students? So Japanese students also get a stimulus from those emerging countries, emerging middle class. So that's a very good positive, stimulating each other because more information shared, more opportunities are given to the students. That's a very good thing.
Thank you. And to follow up this question, I have recently read your papers.
Thank you.
In that paper, you analyze the influences of the Bologna process in Europe on the internationalization of higher education in Japan.
Yes.
Could you please tell us more about how these influences have changed the landscape of higher education in Japan? And what role does Japan plays in regional higher education in Asia?
Yeah, as I mentioned, that Japan tried to internationalize because so many reasons, like they want to have more universities in the top 100 international ranking system, or they want to have more international students to augment the shrinking student population, or they want to, because shrinking population, we need more like an international talented workforce, for example. I think the Bologna process gives Japan is many good inspirations, many hints about what Japanese higher education community should do. I think one is more domestic thing, another one is more regional thing. Domestically, I think Bologna process gives idea that moving, as I mentioned, student mobility would enrich students, how to say, college life in terms of acquiring new knowledge, skills, attitude. Also, exposure to diversity is very good. And regionally, as you mentioned, the leadership is Japan I think Japan belongs to East Asia. So now Japan is working with China, Republic of Korea, South Korea, and three countries is called Campus Asia. So that's one group of the student mobility. Then also Japan is a member of the ASEAN. It's called the AIMS. 6 countries in ASEAN is try to move students around in exchange. Then because Japan want to be part of the East Asia, also part of Southeast Asia, but Japan is not member. But Japanese companies have many factories, many companies in Southeast Asia. So Japanese industry pushed the Japanese Ministry of Education to have more, sending more Japanese students to the Southeast Asia, and then inviting more students to Japan from Southeast Asia. So that's one inspiration that Bologna process gave. So it's more, Bologna process is more, how to say, I think not a particular way of Bologna process, but the Bologna spirit is kind of good inspiration. So Japan can do, cultivate its own role in the Asia and Pacific.
Thank you very much for
welcome.
taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you.